So, what does it actually take to challenge a god king? Think about it for a second. You have to walk right up to an absolute monarch, literally the most powerful man on the planet, a guy backed by massive armies and generations of totally unchallenged authority, and you have to look him in the eye and tell him his entire worldview is completely wrong. The stakes? Well, they absolutely could not be higher. The atmosphere in a room like that would be just suffocating, heavy with the threat of immediate death. And today, we're going to explore a historical text that plays out exactly like one of these massive cinematic epics, capturing the sheer terror and the awe of these legendary historical confrontations.
Welcome to today's Explainer. We're opening up the pages of a deeply profound historical commentary, Surah Ash-Shura, or The Poets, as analyzed by Moulana Maudoodi. We're going to map out these dramatic, repetitive cycles of prophets standing up to tyrants all across the ancient world. And as you'll see, these earth-shaking confrontations aren't just, isolated myths. They are recurring events that hold a mirror right up to the stubborn, unyielding core of human nature itself. We're tracing the footsteps of the people who dared to speak truth to absolute power.
Okay, let's dive right in. Section 1. The Weight of Prophethood. An Internal Struggle. So, our first act actually begins incredibly quietly. Not with a grand, sweeping battlefield, but with an intense internal struggle. The stark, really beautiful title of Surah Ash-Shura, The Poets, grounds our exploration into Moulana Maudoodi's historical commentary. And he frames the opening of this monumental text not just as religious doctrine, but as this incredibly intimate, agonizing look into a messenger's fragile state of mind. It sets this deeply personal tone before all the geopolitical storms start to brew. It's a great reminder that these epic historical figures, they were profoundly human first.
The commentary actually highlights this really jarring, visceral description. The prophet is depicted as almost grieving himself to death. I mean, wow. It brilliantly captures the immense emotional burden he's carrying around. Just imagine the sheer psychological weight of holding on to a truth that you know with absolute certainty will save your people, only to be met with stubborn, mocking disbelief every single day. That kind of grief is all-consuming. It just eats away at you. This isn't a fight for territory or gold. It's a fight for the very soul of a community that's teetering right on the edge.
Moving on to Section 2. Moses enters the court, facing Pharaoh. Now, that heavy emotional backdrop perfectly sets the stage for one of the absolute grandest set pieces in ancient history. The commentary details the exact moment Moses gets his divine command. And what makes this so compelling to me is his hesitation. It's so visceral and human. Moses is not some fearless, flawless superhero. He openly admits he is terrified, and he actually begs for his brother Aaron to join him as his backup, his minister. The psychological stakes here are just massive. He is literally walking back into the opulent, terrifying court of his former adoptive father, a man who literally claims to be a living god on earth.
And Pharaoh, being the ultimate political tactician, doesn't miss a beat. He immediately launches into this calculated psychological warfare. He's looking down from his towering throne at the guy who used to run around his halls, and he essentially says, "Wait, did we not raise you among us as a child?" He is actively trying to shrink Moses down, weaponizing his past dependence and his youthful mistakes to totally undermine his mission in front of the whole royal court. It is a total masterclass in gaslighting and manipulation, perfectly designed to make Moses feel small, ungrateful, and entirely powerless.
But Moses? He doesn't take the bait. No way. He doesn't cower, and he doesn't get defensive about his past either. Instead, he just stands his ground and delivers this brilliant, unapologetic reply, "I am a messenger of the Lord of the worlds." The absolutely crucial takeaway here is how he completely sidesteps Pharaoh's trap. He instantly reframes the whole conversation around his own monumental purpose, just reclaiming the narrative right in front of the empire's elite. It's this moment of just unparalleled courage that shifts the entire power dynamic in a single breath.
All right, things are heating up. Section 3, Magic, Miracles, and Escape. The Grand Showdown.
So the tension in that throne room rapidly boils over into this massive public showdown. The text actually maps out a cinematic timeline for the day of the festival. First up, the gathering. The empire's elite magicians assemble. They are ready to perform and protect the crown's image. Then, the demonstration. Moses steps forward, totally unfazed, and throws his staff into the arena. And then, the twist. Sudden, absolute submission. Pharaoh's own magicians, the guys hired specifically to humiliate Moses, instantly recognize this isn't some cheap parlor trick. It's a true miracle. They literally fall prostrate right there, completely shattering Pharaoh's carefully orchestrated illusion of total dominance.
And of course, this showdown inevitably builds to a catastrophic climax. The commentary dives deep into the dramatic, world-altering escape at the sea. The waters part for the oppressed Israelites, offering this miraculous path to freedom, while the arrogant, pursuing army of Pharaoh is completely engulfed right behind them. It is quite literally a washing away of a tyrannical empire. And the text describes this with incredible, vivid geographical and historical detail. The sheer scale of this moment, it represents the ultimate collapse of unchecked human arrogance when it finally crashes up against divine will. Let's shift gears a bit. Section 4, Abraham's plea, a call to reason.
So right after that explosive, earth-shaking climax in Egypt, the text deliberately hits the brakes on the pacing. We transition seamlessly into a deeply philosophical narrative, Abraham's intense, personal dialogue with his people. Now, unlike the grand spectacle of parting seas and crumbling empires, Abraham's approach relies on sharp, incisive logic. He systematically dismantles the entire foundation of his people's idol worship, and he does it by using their own intellect and common sense against them. It's a much quieter battle, sure, but it's one fought just as fiercely for the minds and hearts of an entire civilization.
He literally asks them point blank, do they hear you when you call, or do they benefit or harm you? Just think about how profoundly simple, yet totally destructive that question is. He's not just criticizing some carved statues, he's challenging the bedrock of generational blind faith. He's demanding that his people wake up and critically analyze what they're actually revering. Why blindly follow the traditions of your ancestors if those traditions completely crumble under the weight of basic, undeniable logic? It forces a painful but absolutely necessary awakening.
And, these epic confrontations between truth and tyranny, they weren't just isolated little incidents happening in a vacuum. They were occurring across these vast, sweeping landscapes that literally shaped human history. From the rocky terrains of the people of Midian all the way to the sprawling, monumental empire of Egypt. This was a massive geographical and ideological war playing out across the entire ancient world. The sheer scale of these narratives is a great reminder that the struggle against oppressive systems and the quest for real spiritual truth is a universal, global endeavor. It transcends any single border.
Which brings us to our final act, Section 5, History's Unyielding Cycle, a Pattern of Ruin. Bringing all these incredible narrative threads together, the commentary reveals its core thesis, and it's a pattern that repeats with terrifying, unyielding precision. Step 1, a messenger arrives with a clear, highly disruptive truth. Step 2, the ruling elites, feeling threatened, demand miracles, usually just as a stalling tactic. Step 3, denial despite undeniable proof. Even when the miracle happens right in front of them, they find an excuse to reject it. And finally, Step 4, inevitable ruin. Nation after ancient nation, they walk the exact same tragic, blinding path of arrogance.
Which leads us to a razor-sharp philosophical takeaway. The demand for a miracle is often nothing more than a convenient disguise for outright denial. Seriously, when people are fundamentally unwilling to change their ways or give up their power, no amount of proof will ever be enough to convince them. They aren't actually looking for evidence to guide them. They're just looking for a loophole to justify a rejection they've already decided on. It is a profoundly deep insight into the actual mechanics of human stubbornness.
Because at the end of the day, history inevitably, relentlessly repeats itself. The names change, the kings fall from their thrones, the grandest empires turn to dust over thousands of years. But human nature, it remains terrifyingly constant. With its blinding pride, its stubbornness, and its boundless capacity for self-deception, humanity just cycles through the exact same tragic mistakes over and over again. The ruins of these ancient civilizations aren't just old stones. They serve as a haunting testament to what actually happens when power decides to blind itself to the truth.
So, that leaves us with a pretty critical, timeless question to end on today. Are we still caught in this exact same cycle? Do we endlessly demand signs and definitive proof while totally ignoring the truth that is sitting right in front of our faces? I really hope this deep dive into the epic cycles of history leaves you questioning, reflecting, and wanting to explore this monumental text even further. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Catch you next time.